Welcome back to The Weird and the Wonderful with Strange Bones. And we're going to be rabbit-holing a little bit today with a little bit of science and a little bit of fiction. Or is it fiction? Well, we're going to find out. And we're going to be talking about some interesting things, I think, which I hope you will all enjoy, because we're going to be talking about a topic that was brought up by one of the guests on our live, something which has more science than you might believe, maybe, and then again, maybe not. And we're going to have to talk about history, mythology, science, and a whole collection of other things, and I hope that you will enjoy it as we get on into it. We shall see. But that said, welcome to my life. I would remind everyone that we have just one rule on the live, and that is to say, don't be rude. If you are rude, we give you the boot. This is to save us from trolls and all the rest of it, but nevertheless, I hope you do enjoy it, and that you will comment greatly, because comments are always welcome. Whether you agree or disagree is fine, as long as you're polite. And we hope that you will likes are free and we need them. And you will share and subscribe, because this too is important for the algorithm. So with all of that said, we are going to look into a topic that may not take the full time. We'll see how it goes. Dani, welcome. I hope that you are having a good evening. Now, here's a question. So, to start us off is, why do we have mythology anyway? What prompts it? Surely there are enough things out in the dark to keep us occupied, especially in the earlier days, not to require more. But it seems that wherever you go all over the world, we have stories, all kinds of things, strange creatures and horrors and more. But one which turns up time and again in multiple cultures is giants. Now, could there have been? Well, if you look behind me, that is a footprint fossilized into rock. And as you can see, some fellow has got his foot in it to give you a scale. And it's pretty big. So, hey there, White Satin. So we're talking giants. How big were they really? Why is there so much out there on them? And yet we are told they absolutely couldn't exist. Well, could they? One of the things which has been brought up and which I find very interesting is that in history, there absolutely have been many, many examples of varied creatures of giant size. And what's the science behind that? Is there any? We know what a wolf is, and if you've ever actually seen a real one, they're a crapload bigger than you think. They're certainly bigger than the average dog. So, yeah. And according to history, at the very least, we used to have a thing called a dire wolf, as big as a small pony, which existed. We know that there were giant versions of a great many animals. And we have an animal with an extremely great attitude right behind me who is climbing up a chair. But he is not a giant animal, he is just a naughty animal. And that is the cat, which is appropriately named Diablo. He's scratching the furniture, which he is not allowed to do. But yes, a wicked little beast with claws that are far too sharp. And his expression of love is to bite you. Why, we don't know. He is very well treated and coddled and loved, and in return he is a little monster. But that's cats for you, I suppose. Now, dinosaurs. Let's start with them. They were said to be of huge stature. It is said that many reptiles don't stop growing as long as they live. Insects too. So we know scientifically that in the past, animals were bigger. They just were. A lot bigger. You have archaeological record of dragonflies that are 4 feet across on their wingspan or bigger. So back in the day, things were bigger. They tell us scientifically now, we're not getting into the good stuff immediately, of course, it's coming. Due to higher oxygen, abundant food, fewer predators, and evolutionary advantages, such as lighter bones or efficient heating in cooler climates, while modern animals are generally smaller because lower oxygen, habitat loss, human hunting of large specimens, higher competition, and physiological constraints, making giant sizes less sustainable today. Now, there's a certain amount of truth to all of this. We know that most of the planet was covered with a lot more greenery back in the day. Many places that are now desert-like never were. So certainly there's that, and more trees would have meant a lot more oxygen. That's very true. So past eras, such as the Carboniferous and the Permian, had significantly higher atmospheric oxygen levels, which allowed large insects to breathe and grow bigger through their inefficient spherical system. We know that vast vegetation in dinosaur-dominated times supported huge herbivores, which in turn created a food base for massive predators. There were fewer predators in competition. Large predators were not as many. Less competition for resources. So some lineages could evolve into massive sizes. We know that the colder Ice Age climates favored larger body sizes, following Bergmann's rule for heat retention, while dinosaurs had unique adaptations like air sacs and light bones to support their weight, which allowed that as well. What is this about? We are talking today about giants. Were they ever real? And we are starting off with some of the science to give us a backing to work off. And as you can see behind me in the picture, we have a human footprint that is fossilized in rock. This one actually is from South Africa, would you believe? And you can see there is a normal man standing in it, showing how much bigger than a normal man the footprint is. Now, evolutionary trends, Cope's rule, suggests that general trend for lineages to increase in size, though it has its limits based on external factors. Now, why then are we all smaller now? According to science, lower oxygen limits the size of animals. It's more efficient to be smaller. Habitat loss and food scarcity. If you're not fed as much, you don't grow as much. And then they do say the human impact made a huge difference as the megafauna were hunted to extinction, removing the largest individuals and shifting the average size downward. Increased competition for resources favor smaller body sizes with more stamina and agility. And then physiological constraints. Large animals are vulnerable to environmental changes and extinction events, while modern anatomy has limits to its size, and so we have much smaller things, I suppose. Now, the first point that we get out of this is it was an advantage to be bigger in the past, and it is not so now. So the smaller creatures have won out, including, to a fair degree, people, at least in the greater historical sense. However, and the however does indeed matter a very great deal, as you can probably imagine. Is this true of all creatures? Now, we know that there are varying hypotheses in respect of the extinction of giant creatures. The top one is climate change. So, as the world warmed up, things just worked better smaller. But here's the next question. Let's take the Bible. Genesis 6:4. The giants died out. Genesis 7 speaks of a worldwide flood sent by God to destroy all the flesh upon the earth. These giants were according to the Bible, a common thing back then, and they died along with the rest of the world's population that were not saved by God. They were a group of something similar to humans, and they got wiped out by the flood. Now, the first important thing to consider in this regard is the fact that the Bible speaks of them as real. They were there. We know that there was in fact a very specific town in the Middle East where the last of the giants lived. We know that of them, the famous one, Goliath, lived in that village and came from there, or that town, whatever, village or town, it's hard to say. And in fact, it was sufficiently known that this same place was written of and spoken about even in Egypt. It was noted in important military documents. There are multiple references to giants in a huge number, excuse the pun, of cultures worldwide. So it seems that everybody tells us giants did exist. Now, in accordance with the rules of giantism in the past, if animals were bigger, is it not logical to say that certain human species, maybe not Homo sapiens, but the earlier ones, were also giant-like? It seems fair, doesn't it? So the question is, were giants really real? Well, let's have a look at some of the ideas behind. Now, bearing in mind, we will not deny that once something is spoken of, the legends do grow. So how big they really were might very well be overstated. But the idea nevertheless remains that there were certain beings that were reasonably bigger than the average person. Now, in many of the old stories, you had the giants or the gigantes that were considered to be the enemies of the gods, the children of Gaia and Uranus in Greek mythology, and they were taken out and then buried under volcanoes to keep them controlled. We know that there were the Nordic stories of the giants, often enemies of the Aesir, and these were the Jotnar, giants that were trouble-causing. Now, the Greek giants were very violent and aggressive. The Nordic giants were generally violent and aggressive. Then you had the Cyclops from Greek myth, some of them very skilled craftsmen, but also often aggressive. You had the Hekatoncheires, the 100-headed giant who aided Zeus in the Titanomachy. You had the Celtic giants as well, another culture entirely like Gog Magog, associated with ancient Britain. And in China, you had stories of Panku, a primordial giant. Giants were world shapers, able to hurl huge rocks, and were often used to explain geography like mountains. They were a representation of the untamed nature, the primal forces. They were always depicted as monstrous and savage, and often a little bit thick. And they hid away for the most part. Now, culturally, they were used in symbolic ways to explain varying things, it is true. And they certainly been thereafter interwoven with stories. But is there any truth to them? That's the big question. They were primordial, they were monstrous, they were powerful, absolutely. They were very capable of building things and are often linked to the building of varying huge ancient ruins where the blocks were too big for a normal human to lift. So they have explanations. We also know there that Some said they were the children of humans with fallen angels, like the Nephilim or the Watchers. And because of their wickedness and their crudity, that was why we needed the great flood of the Bible to wipe them out. It was a protective measure, if you will. Now, they say there is a seed of truth in all story. We do know that there were certainly world-shaping events. Apparently there has been what they refer to as an extinction event 5 times in human history, right back to the start of human history, of course. So there would have been significant changes to the environment, which would require a fair amount of adaptation. And if there were species that could not adapt, they would certainly go extinct. We know that the gigantes, or gigas, singular, were a race of great strength and aggression, and their battles with varying Greek heroes, etc., were pretty impressive. They were certainly large enough. Now, the gigantes is usually taken to imply that they were earthborn, the offspring of Gaia, the earth, with Uranus, the sky. But of course, the Titans and the Cyclops and others absolutely were all said to... I'm being hunted by a cat again. They were all said to come from the same source, these larger, more powerful things. And then, of course, from them, so did many other things. So it's mixed in with the creation myth for the Greeks. But the giants were not the Titans. They were a separate creature. We know that there were quite a few Titans, which were a little bit different from the giants themselves. So there are distinctions made in the ancient Greek myths between different types, different kinds, and all the rest of it. We do see that Homer speaks of a king who was a giant, Eurymedon, and he's spoken as being great-hearted. So a really good, decent person, but apparently his people were insolent and aggressive. So giants have attitude with their size. Apparently they were great crafters and great warriors. And we do know as well that this turns up in Jewish mythology, wherein we see that the giant that was slain by David with his sling was indeed the greatest warrior of that army. Probably because of his huge size. It would have been pretty difficult to fight against somebody like that, one assumes. Now, apparently, it was their bad attitude that required them to be destroyed in Greek legend, Roman legend, and indeed in Jewish legend. They suffered unforgettable punishments for the evil that they did. according to Bacchylides, one of the writers in Greece on these things. Now, the Laestrygonians were also mentioned, which seems also to be in a kind of giant, where they hurled rocks huge as a man could lift, possessed of giant strength and size. So apparently there were groups of them that lived together and were feared by many around. The list that they are mentioned in Egypt was a list of all the countries surrounding Egypt and whether or not they were a political threat in any manner or form. So that makes a very interesting point, that they were listed along with any other threat of normal-sized people as a normal thing in a normal list of things you ought to know if you're worried about threats to the kingdom. Not in story or mythology, but in government lists, which is very, very interesting. Now, the Greeks use a huge amount of giants in their stories. Eurymedon was just one of a great many. And it seems that they are not the only ones. The Romans spoke of giants, and Ovid in his poem Metamorphoses also speaks of huge giants that were of great strength. From Ossa, huge and enormous Pelion. From the blood of the giants came forth new races even, and Gaia did not want them to thrive, so she had them wiped out. In Jewish mythology, the flood very much was to wipe out most especially the giants. But where especially were they? It seems all over. We know that there were certain particular places mentioned, the Phlegraean Islands off the coast of Naples, where the giants lived. So they spoke of specific places. We know there were specific places in the Middle East where the people were said to be giants. And indeed, there were absolutely wars against them to wipe them out because of the danger and severe aggression of these beings, whatever they might be. So we've got quite a lot of stories of giants existing alongside people, that they were there and they were dealt with in the ways that one dealt with a dangerous cultural group, I suppose. That sooner or later you had to fight against them. Many of them are very specifically named, showing that people seem to think they knew who they were at the very least. But what is a giant and how big is a giant? Well, we've got stories all over the world that have become mythological type stories, or fairy tales, if you will. We've got Jack the Giant Killer, better known as Jack and the Beanstalk. And again, the giants are fairly dim and violent, will eat pretty much anything, including people. They appear in all kinds of places and all kinds of stories throughout history. Fionn McCool is said to have built the Giant's Causeway because he was a giant. That's from Irish mythology. In American tales, you had Paul Bunyan, that supposed to have been a major figure in American history. Probably not real in that one. However, we do know that the Mahabharata in India tell of battles in which giants were involved in the stories, either fighting alongside the gods or against the gods. We will go into that a bit further as well. We know that there were quite a lot of giant animals. I mean, mammoths were 3 or 4 times the size of a normal elephant. There are stories throughout history. Pliny, a historian, describes a giant's skeleton found in Crete after an earthquake. Herodotus says that a giant skeleton was found in Tegea. St. Augustine mentions what is believed to have been the fossilized molar of an ancient kind of elephant in his City of God, and a passage reflecting on the nature and meaning of the Great Flood in the Bible. It seems that there's reference again and again and again. I'm checking all of these names because some of them are really quite difficult to pronounce. You have to forgive me for that, but I'm doing my best. So, both religion and mythology speaks of these things. How are you, sir? Are you in fine and fabulous form?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
I'm
How you
glad
doing?
to hear that. Yeah, not too bad at all. Carrying on regardless. So, varying discussions we've had in the past have tended to refer to a number of things more on the modern mythological view, rather than how possible could it scientifically have been. However, I saw a very interesting video all about gigantism in early history. Now, we know for fact that there were dire wolves, dire lions, dire tigers. We don't call them dire, but woolly mammoths were 3 or 4 times the size of elephants seen today. We know that there were dragonflies with wingspans of up to 6 feet. There were giant creatures. This is fact. So why shouldn't there be giant people as well? And certainly if we look at history, a great many different peoples absolutely do say that there really were giant people. We find it all over the world. Finn McCool of Ireland was a giant. We know that the Greeks spoke of quite a lot of giants. The Bible refers to a lot of giants. Egypt, in some of their government records of threats to the kingdom around Egypt, mentions a very specific town in the Middle East where giants are known to live and are considered very dangerous. And interestingly enough, Jewish literature says that Goliath, the one killed by David, came from that same place. So we got different cultures both saying that that town is filled with giants. So the question we're asking, is it possible? Well, scientifically it is possible. Secondly, it seems that everyone agrees that they were all there, and what caused them to die out actually fits in a way to what science says wiped out giant animals. As you can see behind me, there is a footprint fossilized in rock of a giant foot. And that's a human man's foot at the back of it. So it seems that gigantism is absolutely possible. And we're going to get further into the differences in a little bit as well. But in the Bible, they say that both before and after the flood, there were Nephilim, which are the children of humans and the Watchers, or fallen angels, which left giant people. So almost all of them were wiped out in the flood, but there are some after, including the Anakim, the Amorites, of which Goliath was one, he was an Amorite, and then the Rephaites, also known as the Emites. The book of Numbers in the Bible includes a report by spies sent by Moses into Canaan that we can't attack these people, for they are stronger than we are. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Again, in the book of Joshua, describing the actual conquest of Canaan in a few generations down the line, it says that there were giant people that lived there that had to be beaten. We also have the tale of Gog and Magog. And then, of course, you have the battle between David and Goliath. Now, all of these were giants in some way. Now, how big do you have to be a giant? Well, the Masonetic, got to get that pronunciation right, version of the book of Samuel gives the height in as 6 cubits and 1 span. So about 10 to 12 feet tall. The Septuagint, which was translated by Flavius Josephus, and later in the Dead Sea Scrolls, say that Goliath's height was 4 cubits and 1 span. So about 8 feet tall. Now, if you remember that back in the past, recent past, historically speaking, at least, human beings were very short. The average height was 4 to 5 foot tall. So I suppose if you're around 4 foot tall and you run into an 8 foot tall person, well, that would certainly be giant enough. In legends, of course, they do get conflated, which is understandable for stories. But nevertheless, the Amorites were all considered to be giants, and that they speak of them. They removed their camp to Hebron, and when they had taken it, they slew the inhabitants. There was till then those left of the race of giants who had bodies so large and countenances so different from other men that they were surprising to the sight and terrible to the hearing. The bones of these men are still shown to this very day, unlike credible relations of other men. So that's from Josephus in his historical writings on the antiquities of the Jews. The book of Enoch says that the giants, of course, are the children of the Watchers and humans, and that's why they are so big. But nevertheless, you've got a lot of people all saying that these guys were bigger than the normal people. They were noted to be tall, curly-haired, and very, very strong. They are generally very aggressive, and rival armies have been said to have fought all over the Middle East. Armenia has a tradition of such battles. The Aztecs. Now, the Aztecs have a race of giants created in one of the previous eras, and it was these people that built Teotihuacan. So the massive stone blocks were moved by massive people called, okay, I'm going to be brave and give it a try, the Quinametsin. So they say that giant people came before them and they did the building, which people then took over. Among the Basque people, so Basque country, of course, is a very hilly creature, but their giants were said not to be that aggressive, but they were righteous and very strong. They were very old-fashioned and traditional, and they had great crafting skill that they were admired for. Many of the old stone formations and things that were built there were said to have been built by the giants in Basque County. But again, they do talk about different kinds, the Gentilak and the Maruak, the Basajuan, and more. So some were forest dwellers, some lived out on the plains, and so on. And they are basically very, very large, a lot more brutish than most people, but they don't necessarily say unreasonably large. So I think that if they were twice the size of you, that would be giant enough. In Bulgarian mythology, you have the Ispolini, the main inhabitants of the earth before people started to populate the earth. They lived in the mountains. They preferred raw meat and often fought against large reptiles of some kind. Some say dragons, but and apparently they offered sacrifices and considered holy blackberries. Not quite sure why, but there you go. Nevertheless, interesting. Thank you so much for the likes there. I do appreciate that. Very kind of you. Now, in Chile, even more giant stories. Apparently, giants would play with ships, moving them around and interrupting sailors. Giants were able to crush humans with their feet, and when laying down to sleep, being so long as to reach from the mountains to the sea. Now, in some stories, the giants are in fact dark-skinned, and connected very strongly again with building things and fire, which is interesting. So they are remembered for pretty much the same things as in other parts of the world. The Hindus speak of giants. In the Satya Yuga, there are 4 ages that the world goes through in the Hindu understanding of time, and one of these included giants. Humans grew to the size of giants during one of the yugas, not in a later one. Now, most interestingly, you pointed out that there have been 5 extinction events that human beings have lived through. Is that not the case, Bookie?
No, not where humans lived through. But mass extinction events for humans is probably more than 5. If I have to look through history. I mean, have you ever heard of Caral? The city of Caral?
I have not.
Okay. It's on the west coast of South America, which is older than ancient Egypt.
And where the Olmecs were big at the time.
They also built like pyramids or big structures. It was probably a big civilization. They left a lot of things.
Yes.
Or lots of evidence there.
Yes.
You should look at it. What's left of it is very little of it, but you can see it was a big civilization, but it's all gone now.
Yes.
I'm not sure what happened there, but it seems like it's all over Earth, and who knows what happened thousands of years before that. It's just so eroded you don't know about it anymore.
That makes sense.
How did a vast civilization, if it's even the same people, a vast civilization from South America moved all the way to America, to Egypt to go and build there, or was it just 2 different civilizations?
Well, interesting that you ask that question, because that same point came up in something today, that maybe the point of origin included giants who are said to be great builders who went in different directions. So they went to South America, but they also went to Egypt. It's in one theory. But go on.
Uh, so you think it's giants? I don't know. Did you have a question for me?
Well, the point is that, according to one of the theories that I found in my research for this today, was that human beings were bigger in a past time, and the remnants of them did survive partly after the mass extinction event, which is remembered in the Bible as the flood, and in other cultures similarly, in other ways. And while most of them were wiped out, and the smaller, more efficient humans continued, there was overlap, and that's why we remember them. As I say, the building of Teotihuacan was done by some of the remnants of the giants. Possibly, therefore, a number of other structures were built by the giants and then taken over by the smaller humans. So the thing is that the reason you got giant animals was because there was more food when the world was greener, and it was, and oxygen levels were much higher, which made things grow. And it's logical that if that's a reason for a wolf to be 3 times or 4 times the size of modern wolves, is that not also a reason to say that humans would have been larger than
Yeah.
current, right?
No, they were probably definitely larger and more hairier. They had to live through an ice age for 100,000 years.
Exactly. So all of the excuses for dire wolves count for humans, and the stories seem to indicate, as you have said, that yeah, they were bigger then, and they built great things that were then taken over by the little ones. I like that picture.
Well, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Is that the coastal city?
yes.
Now, interestingly, almost all the stories say that the majority of giants were very aggressive and warlike.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting, it's cultures on the opposite side of the earth to each other that say exactly the same thing. So,
Yeah, I don't get it. How did they? So you do think it's different cultures, or
well,
obviously different people? They probably developed their own languages because
yes, but what I'm saying
this.
is a human on the opposite side of the world describes the giant in exactly the same way. It almost entirely implies that they encountered them and they were just like that. Great builders, fine craftsmen, very warlike and aggressive.
Probably big muscles like
Yes,
gorillas. Naturally big muscles. They didn't have to go and gym.
absolutely. Now, of course, when it comes to these things, all the cultures speak of them. I mean, not just the Bible and such. I see here that with the Norse speak of them, calling them Jotnar. In Old English, they were called Etten. And they're all, again, all aggressive, huge, with big muscles and deadly in battle.
Well, how should you look like if you want to domesticate a wild bull?
Fair point. I mean, you'd have to be pretty strong.
Yeah.
They even go as far as to talk about different types. So you had the mountain giants, the frost giants, and the fire giants. And funny you should say bull, because the mountain giants like to have fine herds of cattle, which they domesticated. And of course,
I'm sure those cattle were probably a lot bigger than they are today.
well, the reason that they could domesticate wild aurochs into cattle that you could keep was because they were big enough to manage the aurochs, which was a huge prehistoric version of a cow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you can
absolutely.
just rope it up and try and tug it. It's just going to walk away with you.
Pretty much. Though written accounts of what the aurochs was like, and remember, we're talking from a people that value war skills, combat skills, and extreme bravery as being, the most important bit of being a man.
Sparta.
Yes, they say that they are afraid of these cows. So clearly the aurochs wasn't something that you took lightly. Their great curving horns, their huge thick skin that's virtually impossible to penetrate, and that they are extremely aggressive. So you would need to be a giant to manage something like that.
Okay. And bisons, they are wild animals, right?
Bison. Yes.
Yes.
Bison are essentially the American continent's, or at least the North American and Canada's continents, equivalent of an aurochs. So you got sort of, they're a similar species, but slightly evolutionary different because of the geography difference. So you got the aurochs in Europe, and then you got the bison in the Americas. And again, huge animals with massive horns and absolutely very dangerous.
Yeah. They've still got a thick hair.
Yes, very much so. And were very adapted to the cold weather.
Uh, well, it's still cold there where they probably stay. It still snows every year.
Oh, yes. According to early reports, you could have herds as big as 1,000 animals on the Great Plains. And it was when people really took to hunting them that they got wiped out. But the bison do still exist, and they're trying to reintroduce and breed up enough again.
Yeah.
But, I mean, herds of 1,000 thundering across the plains, I mean, you can imagine that would have been quite a sight. So, yeah, giant animals certainly existed, so why not giant peoples? Now,
But I bet the bison also used to be a lot bigger than they are today.
oh, yes, they're about twice the size of an ordinary cow. And I mean, that's a lot of
Why did
meat.
everything started shrinking?
Yes, essentially, that's exactly what happened. Because of the change in the atmosphere, most especially, less oxygen made a very big difference. Climate change is what changes creatures. And in a less oxygen rich environment, smaller is more efficient.
Okay.
So,
Less.
yes,
More.
we have less oxygen than there was.
But during an ice age. Do you not think maybe it was too cold and maybe a bigger body would mean bigger body heat?
That's another factor, yes, absolutely. There's a list of things. So, larger size is hotter. More oxygen allows for greater lung capacity and strength. There are several factors that list, and they all work together. But when you start flipping those factors, less oxygen, warmer weather, it becomes much more efficient to be smaller and faster and more agile.
Yeah. When you're smaller, you can probably disperse heat quicker than if you're big. You're probably gonna just overheat and
Well,
struggle
it's one of those knock-on effects. So the deer find it's easier to run away when they're smaller, so they start breeding smaller naturally. But then, of course, for the predators, the ones that are bigger and slower can't catch up with the deer, so they die out. And the smaller, lighter, faster predators breed on because they can actually catch the deer, which have gotten smaller and faster. So it's a knock-on effect, absolutely.
But for humans, humans survive by adapting.
Yes. But they still have to manage the oxygen.
Yeah. But yesterday you said there were less oxygen when the dinosaurs were alive. And if you look at some of the bones we did gather of dinosaurs, they were enormous fucking creatures.
Well,
Some of them.
it depends on which bit, because there was a time when there would have been a lot, but when things went sort of very mushroomy and fungal in its plant life, that would have been less oxygen. You've got to really have the green leaf plants that can produce chlorophyll and such that convert carbon dioxide into oxygen. And that's when the warm-blooded creatures exploded onto the scene. Okay. So dinosaurs of which type in what era? Because there were a lot of dinosaurs in a time where it was the earth was very green and the mushrooms and things had faded away. So they would have been a different kind. The trouble is, we're talking over millions and millions and millions of years, so different ages.
Well, I just looked to see what the biggest dinosaur is, and yeah, it weighed about 70 tons.
Diplodocus?
Uh, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's a Portosaurus. It's got a very long neck, like a very, very long neck.
Okay. I figured it would be one of those, one of the herbivores.
Long neck, long tail.
Yes.
Yeah, very big. So I'm not sure. It probably
Now,
can't.
that kind would have had to exist in a time where you had a lot of trees, simply so that it could eat enough. If you weigh 70 tons, you can imagine how much food it would go through.
I can imagine it's very slow as well, and it uses its long neck to see predators from far away, so it can start moving away.
Pretty much, yeah. And there would have been far less predators anyway.
Especially if you hunt a creature like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's big enough to give you a good swat.
Uh,
So, yeah, you sort of have to be kind of careful as to which bit, because the different dinosaurs lived at different times. They weren't all in one time.
They've lived for millions of years as well, for
Yes,
a very long time.
but then we do know there were changes in the Earth's atmosphere where a 70-ton creature just wouldn't have easily managed to survive. It probably couldn't breathe easily, and it would have died out in favor of the smaller creatures. So absolutely. And a 70-ton creature would never survive an ice age. It just wouldn't get enough food. So again, an extinction point for them, right there. Whereas something smaller that could survive on far less probably could scrape by, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Well,
again,
the meteor
science
that killed
and
them
logic.
all,
Say again?
the meteor that killed them off, it didn't like wipe them all out immediately. It
No,
was
no.
changes in the atmosphere, and yeah, so food started getting scarce, and
Absolutely. When we talk of geological events, it probably happened over quite a few hundred years, at least,
yeah,
if not thousands of years. I mean, it wasn't quick.
yeah, so that most likely probably did starve to death
Yeah,
because ashes were blocking out the sun, and this new ice age started.
exactly. And then things slowly changed. And again, when we say slowly, what's slow in time in terms of history? I mean, if you're going over 10 million years, slow, I mean, if it happened over 2,000 years, that would be really quick in terms of 10 million years, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Whereas,
look at us. What did we achieve in 2,000 years? I mean,
exactly,
that's like in a blink of a time. That just happened like right now, so quickly.
exactly, totally correct. So, we have to be very careful of what we mean in terms of time. But nevertheless, giant.
It could have taken them 2,000 years even until they all died out.
Oh, absolutely. We know that there are crossovers between the dinosaurs and humans. So, absolutely, there were dinosaurs around when there were a version of human around. Whether or not it was Homo sapiens, we're not sure, but certainly quite possibly Homo erectus.
No, no, we're talking about like 50 to 60 million years ago. If it was us, then we would have been like rat type of creatures, like
No,
little
there
mouse
are human footprints on top of dinosaur
or
footprints.
humanoid.
Humanoid, yes. So when I say human, I'm not necessarily meaning Homo sapiens, which we are,
Yeah.
but the predecessors, shall we say. So
Yeah,
there
now I
was
can imagine that other creatures would evolve similar to us with arms and feet, because that's how you would navigate through the world. I mean, everything's actually got like arms and feet. Well, not everything's got arms, but they do have feet.
well, to be fair, almost every single creature with a skeleton has in fact got the same skeleton, just stretched a little differently.
Yeah,
So if you take a bat skeleton, it is essentially the same as a human skeleton. It's just been pulled and modified slightly because it's a
it's
mammal.
probably also got 5 fingers.
Yes. A dolphin skeleton is the same as a human skeleton. It's just pulled and stretched different, bit shorter bones here, but longer ones there. But it's the same skeleton.
Isn't a whale a mammal as
Yes.
well?
A whale
And
skeleton is the same.
it's got some useless bones that it doesn't need anymore. It used to have arms.
Well, inside its fins are essentially hands. It's got fingers on a bit just like your hand does.
Yeah, but it doesn't use it anymore.
Correct. So all mammals have the same skeleton. And that's one of the ways that you know it's a mammal and not, say, a fish. Because if you compare a goldfish skeleton to a mammal skeleton, no amount of pulling or pushing or shortening or lengthening will make the two similar. They are totally different skeletons.
Yeah. But if you look at a rat, it's very similar to ours.
As
They've
well.
also got 5 fingers and 5 toes.
Yes, absolutely.
The hands that they can use to grab things and put
And
it
they
in their
do.
mouth.
They do. So, yes. Now, interestingly enough, according to the Northern Paiute in America, the Sitka, also known as the Sai, are a tribe of cannibalistic, which is common among the giants apparently, red-haired, also common among giants apparently, giants, and the remains of some of them were even found in 1911 in Nevada's Lovelock Cave. So there absolutely were giants in the North Americas, and they especially lived along the Sierra Nevadas and the Rockies. So,
Did they
yeah.
live through the Ice Age?
Apparently, not many of them did. Some did.
Because I can imagine if you live through an Ice Age, you are going to be a cannibal.
Well, there's that as well. So, the last big flood, which would have been a melting of the ice caps. Hey, Jacob. Most giants died out, but remnants did remain and then slowly died off. But they were aggressive and absolutely didn't do well in a hotter climate, apparently. So the Paiute actually say that as things became hotter, the giants all died off.
Well, they evolved into smaller creatures.
Well, however you look at it, the big ones went and the small ones won out.
Is that a 5-toe footprint behind you?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep. So, and you know where that one is?
Where?
South Africa.
Okay.
So, yeah, that is a fossilized giant footprint in South Africa. So, again, an interesting thing. And of course, all over Europe, the giants are said to have built all sorts of things. The Danish historian Saxo Grammaticus said that most megalithic monuments around Europe were built by the giants. A very old English poem called The Seafarer speaks of the high stone walls being the work of giants. I'm not sure where, but nevertheless. A number of natural geological features, such as the Giant's Causeway, were said to have been made by giants, those ones particularly by Finn McCool. In the Netherlands, the giants are known to be builders. So, absolutely. there are stories all over the world, and essentially what we get out of pretty much all of them, giants were big. How big, we're not sure, but bigger than people. Often red-haired, even in countries where people are not red-haired at all. They were known to be very aggressive, very good at building, and excellent craftsmen, which is very interesting. And that's from the Middle East to Ireland to South America, same story. So very, very interesting that they're seen pretty much the same, almost as if they're all talking about the same people. Just saying. Now, we've got all kinds of specifically named giants that range in height from around 8 feet to about 12 feet, which seems to be the average height of giants, bearing in mind the average height of people of the time that wrote of them was around 4 to 5 foot. So just imagine, given yourself as tall as you are, the height of 4 foot, right? You're an average sized man, not terribly tall, not too short, average, right? So 4.5 feet tall. And you meet somebody twice your height with huge muscles.
I'll probably recruit a bunch of people with me and then take them out.
But I mean, they would be giant to you, would they not?
They would, but I can still throw a spear at them.
Well, as we know from David and Goliath, he used a sling.
Yeah. I mean, he's a danger to humans.
Absolutely.
If he catches a human alone, so we need to band together, get our tribe together, take him out.
Absolutely. And we know that's what the Hebrews did to the Anakim living in that one town in the Middle East. They absolutely did that. The same town that Goliath came from, where they were all giants, and they wiped them out.
Giants probably had breeding problems as well.
Quite possible. So the Anakim, the Amorites, both giant races, Asura, in Hindu mythology, giant race, the behemoth of Hebrew folklore was a giant animal. The Dutch speak of Druon Antigon, who was a giant. Bran the Blessed in Welsh mythology was a giant, as was Serwi and Camoran in Cornish mythology, Cyclops in Greek mythology, Deodarat Chichi in Japanese mythology, Dahlia from Hinduism, the Fomorians in Irish mythology, the Gigantes of Greek mythology, Gog and Magog from the Hebrew Bible, Goliath from the Book of Samuel, Humbaba from Sumerian mythology or history, depending how you look at it, Ispolin from Slavic stories, Gentil from Basque country, the Jotun from Germanic and Nordic, the Kalevipog from Estonian mythology, the Majitu from the Swahili people. So a kind of a giant. The Book of Numbers speaks of Og. The European folklore speaks of ogres. kind of giant. Paul Bunyan from American Stories was a giant. Quinametsin from Aztec mythology. The Rakshasas from Indian mythologies, more than one, Jainism, Hinduism, something else, I forget now. The Raphites from Hebrew stories, the Rubezahi from Czech folklore, the Sitika from Paiute stories, the Stylo from Sami mythology. I have a very dry eye for some reason. The Teutoburchus from Germanic mythology, the Titans, of course, the Toel the Great from Estonian mythology, Trolls from Nordic mythology, Junias from Romanian folklore, and Yabadaden from Welsh mythology. So we've got giants in a crapload of cultures, all between, as I say, about 8 to 12 foot tall, which is reasonable if you think
You
about it.
said these creatures are kind of intelligent.
They are a little bit brutish, not as bright as Homo sapiens, so a little bit thick, but
You said that they're
certainly
architects or
intelligent.
builders.
Intelligent insofar as they are craftsmen, builders, they wear clothes and all the rest of it.
Okay. So maybe humans were the architects, they were the construction workers.
Well, it seems they were clever enough to do great buildings on their own, but if you were a quick talker, you could absolutely confuse one of them and get away with it.
Okay.
So
Were
they
they
are famous for
big
being
enough?
tricked.
Were they big enough to build Stonehenge, to pick up that rock and lay it down?
Apparently, possibly yes.
Because that rock was probably the size of them. Or they might have been a little bit taller than that rock.
So they were big enough to manage quite a bit. Some stories say they could have been up to 20 foot tall.
Okay, well, that's way too big.
I would say the idea of being between 8 and at the outside 15 feet tall would be reasonable, and certainly giant enough if most people were 4 to 5 foot tall.
They probably had a strong bone structure, otherwise they'll
Yes,
have
and
massive
they
bones.
were said to be very muscular. But they were also small enough because a number of people talk of them breeding with human females. So they were a version of humanoid in that regard, and could have half children who were considered to be pretty big. And bigger and stronger than the average man, but not that big and strong as a giant, if that makes sense. They certainly could fling huge rocks and did so in combat quite often.
So they were partially human. Their
They
genes
seem,
could have mingled with ours.
they seem to be a version of human that just like if you look at, you've got Homo floresiensis, which are hobbit-like humans. So their natural size was much smaller than everybody else. They would have been half our size.
Apparently, Neanderthal was not human, but we bred with it as well.
Well, remember when we talk human, what we really generally mean is Homo sapiens.
Yes.
So
So
not Homo
Neanderthal was something
sapiens,
else.
but still Homo in a regard. So compatible. So kind of human in a way, but not. And if you allow for a certain amount of literary effect, they would have been fairly standard human, just not quite the same. So, for example, Humbaba the Terrible in the Epic of Gilgamesh is said to be lion-faced. Now, given that most people of that time and place would have been fairly smooth-skinned, as many hot country races are, if you got somebody that was like really hairy, they would be considered to be lion-faced, would they not?
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that they were bigger, they were broader, they were hairier, which fits again the kind of peoples who would have survived through an ice age. So it does sort of fit to the rules of what could survive, which means giants absolutely could have existed. Now, we do know that certain buildings were said to be built by them, but didn't last. Wondrously wrought and fair its walls of stone, shattered by fate, the castles rent asunder, the work of giants mouldered away. Now, they're referring to a hot bath, the old kind, as in a building containing the baths, as it were. Hot within, the steam flowed with mighty surge, the wall surrounded it all. The bath stood hot within its heart. Right in this western word Greberkin, Bergsteed Burston Bursneis Inter Gredwork. Yeah, the steam flowed with a mighty surge. My old English is shit. Breton Bosma Ser Sa Bathu Weron Hat on Chresre. The stream came hot from within the bosom of the bath. Yeah, I don't get the rest of it. Old English is terrible to read. But nevertheless, there are a number of beautifully preserved buildings that are made with immense walls. So in Rexter is a bath that the poem might refer to, and it is a freestanding wall that once went round a bathhouse, and it's 7 meters thick. Huge, thick wall that would have insulated the heat within. Now, that would have been a hell of a construction for a small person, but apparently the giants could do it well. So, yeah, it's said at least the giants did this. They say that the giants did in fact build Stonehenge. And it was done at the request of Merlin. Now, according to the story, the stones were brought to Britain from Africa. I wonder if that would be the case. And then they were set up by the giants. So, and the giants were said to be twice the height of a normal man. Some of them were good, some of them were not, depending on which stories you talk about. it's a very interesting thing. So, who were these possible huge people? We're not sure. But the stories are everywhere. And if you add to that, we've got carvings all over Britain of giants, as we know, and giant buildings in Italy known as, one of the is the Temple of Jupiter with the giant stone columns. They were very, very large. Now, one version I found said that any person from 2 meters to 4 meters in height would have been considered a giant. And it's only in recent years have we started growing again. And even now, anybody over 6 foot is considered tall, are they not? Which is true. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, most of the science will say it's probably a genetic anomaly that made people bigger if they ever did exist. Well, no. It would be a genetic anomaly today because the state of the air and etc., all of the other reasons doesn't lend to larger creatures. So it would be an anomaly today, but it wouldn't be an anomaly if things were different, would it? And I mean, I wish I could get it up, but unfortunately the picture's not big enough, which means I'm not able to... let's try again. If it will let me, with some more really nice pictures of giant stuff, which I think you might enjoy. And it does show that not massively bigger, but certainly reasonably bigger, if that makes sense. Now, will it let me open at all? I think it does. But you can see parts of it. It doesn't really want to show all of it because if I try and modify it, it won't. The one at your top right is the one that I had before, the footprint. This one here, you can see the drawn part, and then the upper thigh part next to, so top left, the upper thigh has got an actual bone on it, but the size is about the same. So you can see the guy's knee to ankle compared to the giant's knee to ankle. That's the size they're showing. And you can see part of the bone in the bottom right. Is that part of the bone or is that part? No, that's the other footprint. And that bone doesn't show up terribly well at all. Unfortunately, it just does not want to aspect ratio correctly. But you'd be looking at somebody, 15 feet would be a reasonable height. Not so possible in that regard. Now, in terms of the varying places, India's got several clans that were considered giants. I mean, how tall is the average Indian man?
Average size?
Yeah.
My size?
Between 5 and 5.5 feet is pretty average. Which is reasonable. So if, as they say, they are approximately 3 times the size of a person, that's very, very giant.
Well, I've never seen a person like that.
I mean, if you went into battle and suddenly somebody popped up in front of you 3 times your height, you definitely need to clean the rust off your armor if you survived.
The rust.
Because you would
Yeah.
have lost yourself.
Nah. Well, when you mentioned I thought about shitting myself, not pissing myself.
Either or, it's not good for the armor.
Uh, I'll shit myself, lose some weight, so I can maybe
Run
try.
faster.
Yeah.
True. So giants are in global folklore. They absolutely are all over the world, um, and recorded by people that ordinarily, like Herodotus, we consider to him to be a good and reliable historian. Absolutely. Yet he talks of giants. So it certainly does exist. We do know that gigantism does occur even now. Charles Byrne, for example, was 7'7", which is pretty impressive. We know that the Denisovians were certainly on average bigger than the norm, with very powerful teeth and jaws. So they would have been quite different to what we would expect as Homo sapiens. They are always mentioned as being very strong and often very much meat eating and not against cannibalism. They are generally considered to be not as clever as the average person, and you can trick them. And that's across the world. So common traits, if you will. So absolutely, they built things, they got around, and they did things, and they beat people. And as a result, a great number of people banded together, just as you said, Spooky, and wiped them out. And what's really interesting is we actually know of them not as a vague use in story, but by specific names, as if people knew it was that guy, like Goliath. He was known, and it was that guy. He was the one. He was huge, and he was their main warrior, and he was like 3 times the size of all the other warriors, and everyone was terrified of him, which, to be fair, is quite reasonable. I think that being terrified of them is pretty good. We do know that there are evidences. The Matsiang footprints in Botswana have really big footprints in the rock. We know that in Mbombo, in the Central Africa, among the Kuba people of what is, now it's the DRC, they have stories not only of giants, but they are white-skinned with red hair, as they are described in a lot of different cultures, interestingly enough. So, yeah, they apparently were big, and they were Nordic, to be frank. And they are named all over. Gaelic mythology, Brythonic mythology, and more. Finn McCool, Balor and Breath, and all of those guys, they're They're specific ones as if we know who they are and what they did, and they are recorded in history as such. So it seems that we must believe in giants, that their existence is not only reasonable, it's almost certain. They were out there, they existed, and they didn't survive. The smaller, better, faster managed to survive, which is pretty cool. Well, mostly because it's us and we like surviving. But yeah, so giants are very probably a real thing. How about that? As were hobbits, which is very pleasing to me. I still love that little fact. So, hobbits are
We
real.
okay. You get dwarfs today, and you also get very tall people that
We
needs
do.
to bend down to go through an average door.
We absolutely do. But like Homo floresiensis, all of them, it wasn't an anomaly, all of them were that short. And we found multiple remains of them, and all of them are about 2.5 foot tall. So giants existed and hobbits existed as a norm, not a
Uh,
deviation, which is really cool. However, I did meet he's in the top 3 of the tallest people in the world. And for a while at least, he lived in Pinetown in South Africa, in the same block of flats as me. And I did not know this. Now, he was an aberration. He had a problem with his pituitary gland, and he never stopped growing. And I remember, because I have always been reasonably tall. I'm 6 foot tall. So, I'm a tall man. And I got into the lift to go up to my flat, jumped straight in, hit the button, and then turned to lean against the wall and realized leaning against the wall opposite me was a belt buckle. And literally, the belt buckle was in line with my chest. And I just looked up and like, hi. And really funny, I was with a co-worker, and she was a very short lady. And she always used to moan, "You don't know what it's like being small." And we got out of the lift on my floor, and he carried on up. And I looked at my co-worker and I said to her, "Now I know how you feel." And she looked at me and said, "And how the fuck do you think I felt?" Because like the top of her head was sort of, in line with my mid-chest. So she was a good foot and a half shorter than me. She was quite short. She could only drive a City Golf. A bigger car she couldn't drive because she couldn't see over the dashboard. So, yeah, I felt really tiny standing next to this guy, and she just didn't want to talk about it. So, yes, I think that if I was out there and I was like the main warrior for the tribe, and I turned around and found I was half the height of the guy coming at me, I'd retire. I would. I'd be like, yeah, enough of that. Cheers. I'm not coming back.
but was that guy skinny or?
Yes. Now, because it was a pituitary tradition, he wasn't in form, if you will. So he was very, very thin.
Mm.
Now,
Oh, I saw a woman. She was also very thin, but she had to duck if she wanted to
yes,
go through doors.
absolutely. So they don't grow out, they go up. However, I have stood next to, it's not the current team, it was a couple of teams back, the South African rugby team. I forget which one it was. It was 10 years ago. I met them at the airport when I was working as a journalist. Now, I won't say that they were terribly bigger, but they were at least a foot taller than me. And they were broad. I mean, they were in proportion. Those guys are large. They are not small people. And that alone was damned intimidating. You know, so if you could meet someone that's proportionate and twice your height, believe me, it would be terrifying.
Yeah. Well, this woman, it was only after I met her, then I thought maybe she was trying to get to me because she told me stuff like nobody wants to date her.
Well,
She's still single, like, yeah, because I don't know, men don't like tall girls, and she was extremely tall.
well, maybe the, people were intimidated by her.
Yeah.
I
Well, I
mean,
wouldn't think.
wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I would feel like a child. It's my mom. This is like, I don't know.
Well,
I'll
you
feel
see,
demasculated.
I can't say that you're wrong feeling that because, you know, it's kind of natural to feel that way. But then it does explain how she feels.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to walk next to her and I feel embarrassed, I mean, I wonder how she would feel then.
Well, exactly. But I suppose they do say that, you know, there's a lid for every pot, so maybe there's somebody out there that likes the fact that she's taller, and she will find somebody for her. Oh, we can only hope, can we not? It would be fair. But
I mean, even
yes,
tall guys don't want tall women.
it would be very intimidating. But then, who's this guy? Danny DeVito. Now, Danny DeVito's big friend is not Sylvester Stallone, the other one, governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold
Now,
Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is a big lad. Danny
Yeah, well, I
DeVito,
saw him the other day. He looks a lot smaller now because
well,
he really aged.
yes, but if you've seen a picture of him younger standing next to his friend Danny DeVito, I mean, the height difference is quite significant.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's striking when it's seen. It certainly would be terrifying. I think it would be very fair to say.
I wonder what Arnold's home language is because he's still got an accent after living in America for like 40 years.
Well, Schwarzenegger is Austrian.
Yes. Yeah.
It means a black lintel, so the top piece above a doorway that makes the brace to hold the bricks up. That's what it is. A Schwarzenegger. It's the black lintel.
Yeah. But he's still got an accent.
Yeah. Well, I've lived my entire life in South Africa. I was born in Africa, raised in Africa, everything, but somehow I've got a fairly English accent, apparently.
Okay.
But with what influence?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not English.
Yeah. No, but you do sound like semi-South African for me. No, you don't sound British. I don't like the British accent. It's very annoying to me.
Well, again, of course, the question would be from which bit? Britain has
Which
so
bit?
many, yeah, Britain has so many accents, it's frightening.
Mm.
And if I had the accent of my greater family, I should sound like a Cockney.
Yeah. Well, the Irish is the worst. I mean, wow, I couldn't even hear what they say.
Well, there's that. You must listen to an angry Scotsman, or worse, even than Irish, an angry Welshman. You will
Yeah,
have no clue. None.
they
Zero.
speak English, but you have no idea what they say.
So
Scottish is just as worse. No idea what they're saying.
it's the Gaelic influence. They roll things. But then, as I say, I used to have a neighbor, wonderful, wonderful guy. But he came from um, Middle West in, I think it's Norfolk is the county, but he came from a particular part of it along the edge. And yeah, what he speaks is technically English. Absolutely, it's English. But yeah, you have to listen twice to understand what he's saying. And if
Mm.
you go slightly higher than where he came from, you get the Cornish people, and they're even worse than that. And if you go on to the Manx Islands, they make the Welsh sound legible.
Mm. Well, I was listening to a Scottish woman the other day, and if there wasn't any subtitles, then I wouldn't have had idea what she was saying.
I was watching a movie the other day where I forget which, it was Train Spotting. Have you seen the movie Train Spotting?
No, no, I can't remember.
If you ever get a chance, watch Train Spotting. It's entirely in English and it comes with subtitles, and it's set in Glasgow.
Okay.
But it comes with subtitles because nobody can understand a word anyone's saying, even though it's all in English. It's hilarious. I remember watching it in the movie theater and laughing the entire way through. And everyone thought I was weird.
1996.
Hey?
1996. No, I
Yeah.
just train spotting.
It's an amazing story. It's not a new movie, I will admit. But good stuff by all accounts. A little bit violent. It's about the drug culture in Scotland, in Glasgow.
Okay. And it comes with the subtitles.
It comes with subtitles so everybody else understands what they're saying. I still remember how hard I was laughing. There's a very sad scene, and in the scene, they're in a funeral house, at the funeral for a baby that died due to neglect because of the drug and whatever going on, and it had been left alone in its crib with a kitten. And the only thing the guy can think of saying is, still a kid for eat. And that just killed me. And I was laughing and laughing and laughing because of what he said. And everybody in the theater was looking back at me like trying to figure out, this is supposed to be the saddest part of the movie. Why was I laughing so hard? And I just couldn't stop laughing. But in other words, the kitten was fine. The baby died, but the kitten was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you had to see it. And if it wasn't for subtitles, you would not get it. And that was the point. So yeah, accents are an amazing thing.
Well, you get people that's very good at changing accents, swapping accents. You've got no idea that that's not actually their accent. But they nail it every time.
Well, have you seen Aladdin when the genie is played by Robin Williams? And he goes through about 40 different accents.
Oh, oh, Robin Williams. Yeah, he was quite a good actor.
He was
Or good voice.
amazing. Amazing at accents. He nailed it every time. To the degree that he doesn't only sound Irish, but he can mimic that specific person who's Irish, to the degree that you will recognize when he's mimicking that person, and then switch to another language and another person and mimic them, and you will recognize who it is from him doing it. He was that good. So, yeah, no,
I wonder what
absolutely.
happened to him.
Huh? Robin Williams?
He's probably old.
No,
Yeah.
he's
No,
dead.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes. He's dead now, of course. He passed away.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, huge loss to the acting profession because the sheer volume of what he could do. But of course, don't forget, he did the radio show in the Vietnam War. Have you not seen Good Morning Vietnam?
No. Thank
Oh,
you.
Spooky, you will like it. It's your style of thing. Go and find Good Morning Vietnam and watch that movie. You will love it.
Okay. It's probably before my time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was born in the 80s.
Yes.
In the late 80s. A month before the 80s, 90s.
You see. So, yes. But nevertheless, it will be right up your alley because you love history and you love interesting things, and it's got Robin Williams in it, and it's all about war, which is pretty damn cool.
Okay. Does he just do voice acting or is he also.
No, it's a live action movie because it's a historical cover of what really happened. Have you
Okay.
ever heard the phrase, it's 0500 in the morning, what does the O stand for? Oh my God, it's early. That was him on radio, in real life, Good Morning Vietnam.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the guy that came up with that.
Yeah.
He literally became his own meme.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's because he starts the radio show. Good morning, Vietnam. It is 0500 in the morning. What does the O stand for? Oh my God, it's early. That's how he started it off.
Mm.
It was an amazing piece of history. Amazing. And absolutely, it's right up your... Go watch it and you will be amazed. And if you are truly, truly honest, you will probably cry.
I'll check it out. Vietnam War.
Yeah, it's the Vietnam War. It's called Good Morning Vietnam.
Good morning. Okay. Good morning, Vietnam.
An amazing thing. So, yeah. a lot more fun than what really went down there. It was a terrible time and a weird one. Lots of drugs. People were given mollies to survive. Yes. Methamphetamines were part of your rations. Yeah, baby. True fact.
In 1987.
Yep.
And
You weren't
so
born
he's
yet.
the main actor.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's a comedy. Well, he makes comedies. It says it's a comedy drama.
More drama than comedy. But there's a lot of comedy in it. I suppose it's a bit like Tropic Thunder and all of those things. And I am
Okay.
referring to movies that you were not born when they came out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm old.
Yeah. No, but I'll watch them. I mean, I've watched some of the movies you've mentioned before.
They are classics. If you want good acting and decent stories, they are up there as you cannot not see them. You know? So, yeah. But there we go. That was Giants, which means I need to come up with something for tomorrow, and I have an idea of what I'm going to do, and it's going to be very dark and very twisted, and hopefully I'll be able to get enough information together for a full live. If not, we'll see. But if you do come up with any ideas that you would like covered, do let me know. And remember, we do this for you and with your support, and without you guys' support, we will not exist. So just like Spooky here, who has been so generous and done many likes for us and comments and more, make sure you guys do as well, so we can keep all of this going for the future. Like, share, subscribe, and do all the good things. And remember, you can find these lives on YouTube if you miss out and want to see. And Spooky, thank you so much for being a part of tonight. It's been pretty good. We have hit our 2-hour mark, and it's been amazing. And I will see you tomorrow. Yep.
Tomorrow is Saturday.
Yes.
Yeah. So this movie, I'm gonna go and watch trailers of this movie and that other movie you mentioned.
I will look forward to your comment.
The movie is 39 years old.
Yep. And it's still one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah. I'll check it out.
Good stuff.
Oh, cool. Enjoy
Have
the
a
night.
fantastic evening. Cheers,
Have a good
bro.
one. Cheers.